Mm. Okay. Yeah. Silence my notes. Sometimes forget that. Goodness. It is 12:01. March 27th, 2020. 2020. 2020. It's really weird to say 2020 all the time. Man. Okay, we're gonna give people a couple of minutes to. I'll admit I was a minute late starting because I got chapstick. Because that's good for me. I like chapstick. If there's one thing I'm probably addicted to these days, it would be chapstick. Might have to work on that. Might need to find me a recovery group for that. It has not begun to invade my life yet, so oh shoot, I take that back. I have a car chapstick. I have a kitchen chapstick. I have a bedroom chapstick. I have a chapstick that goes with me in the pants. I have a chapstick that's in the diaper bag. I have to work. All right, so I might have to look at that one. Goodness gracious. There's this ditty that's been stuck in my head. And I don't know where it comes from. I'm pretty sure it comes from Sesame Street, though. It's the one that goes dun 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 dun. Pretty sure that that's Sesame Street. I don't know. All right. So, well, before we kind of get into today's recovery check-in, I want to just kind of give you some updates. Ooh, I touched my face. So yesterday, yes. Hancock County had its second confirmed case. You may have saw that on the newspaper or social media or that kind of stuff. So, we're kind of continuing to monitor everything. Keeping Hancock Helps up to date. So any press releases, if you don't have access to the newspaper or that kind of stuff, all those press releases as they're released, we also do post on Hancock Helps. So those are available, and then we also work on getting some translations of those available. So if you have people in your life that maybe English is not their first language, and need that translated into some different language, like don't be afraid to holler. We have some resources here, and by here I mean like the county to make that happen. So, all right, so thanks Lou. Muppets are not Sesame Street. Okay, so like I gotta work on that. As my kid gets older, I'm sure I'll get more versed in those things. So today's recovery check-in, I was thinking that we could talk about potentially something a little bit heavy, but it keeps coming up in some of the conversations that I'm having with folks. Including, some of you that are watching, and some of you have chimed in and messaged us. Words. And so today's recovery check-in, I want to talk about grief. In other recovery check-ins, we've talked about perspective, and we've talked about sitting with uncomfortable feelings and identifying uncomfortable feelings and all that jazz. But as things kind of continue, and we have about a week and a handful of days till April 6th. One thing that, like I said, keeps coming up is grief. And I think that sometimes grief can be a hard thing to recognize. It can be a hard thing to identify and say, hey, like, I think what I'm going through might be grief. And I want you to think about maybe in your own life, if you're having some uncomfortable feelings, is it grief? Is it maybe grief? Grief is, that typically And while there is that kind of sense in the world right now, grief comes in lots of different forms from lots of different sources and can look a lot of different ways. So partly, I mean, you could be grieving and kind of going through some grief because things have changed. The world has changed. You might have changed. And that can cause some grief. Yesterday we talked about, thinking about that shift and embracing whatever shift is in your life. And that can come with some grief, because if you're making a shift or you're making a pivot, even if it's a good thing, it does come with some kind of loss. And that loss might be a good thing. It might be a mediocre thing. It might be not a good thing. Or a hard thing in the moment, even if in the long term that shifts will be good for you. So, I know, when you change jobs or maybe you lose jobs, or have lost a job recently, like that can come with some feelings of grief. And, like right now, kind of I feel like there's kind of this almost palpable, almost touchable. And, that can be because we know things in life are going to be different, but we don't exactly know how. And we also know that things right now, like the state that we're in right now, with this public health situation is temporary. We know that it's temporary, like rationally, we know that it is temporary. We have seen, other countries and whatnot on the uphill climb of recovery from that. And even though we know it's temporary, it may not feel temporary. And that can be a weird kind of feeling, weird kind of thing. Another thing that I know that I'm kind of working through is that loss of predictable. Some people kind of call that kind of anticipatory grief, or anxiety. But so things are uncertain, and we can sense that there's something out there that's not great, that's not positive, but we can't see it, touch it, feel it, wrap our heads around it, because when it's something a little bit more tangible, it's easier. It's easier to wrap your brain and your mind around it. So for example, when there is a car accident, or when there's a natural disaster, that's probably a better example. When there was a tornado that went through Dayton last year, and when we see that natural disaster, we can understand the grief that goes with that, because it makes sense. We see the destruction, we see lives lost. We have a concept for that. So when we have something, like this public health situation that we can't see, it can be more difficult to wrap your brain around it and to kind of process through those emotions. And so sometimes, we can kind of catch ourselves getting caught up in anticipating all of the super bad things, thinking about. So I would challenge you that if you are that person that thinks of those worst case scenarios and those worst kind of things, I want to challenge you to counter that by also thinking about not necessarily the best situation, but what is better. So like, for example, maybe you're concerned about you or someone you love getting sick, and maybe severely so. Okay, that could be a worst case situation. But a better situation could be, what? I'm doing the best that I can. I'm taking the steps that I know that I can take for myself and for my family. And I know that people are going to get sick, but I also know that people recover, and I also know that people get better from this. And that I also know that as a world, we're going to come out better from this. So countering that kind of thought process. So, Shayna, we're gonna talk about some of that that you brought up. About people going around doing stuff that isn't a great choice right now. We're gonna talk about that actually at the end. So when it comes to that grief piece, part of dealing with that is looking at the stages that go with that. So there's the denial piece. There's, this isn't going to happen to me. There's the anger part, which I feel like is pretty self-explanatory. It's the I'm really PO'd that this is happening. Rage, rage, rage. The bargaining piece, like, oh yeah, so if we all stay home for 2 weeks, this is going to blow over, right? And everything's going to be fine, right? The sadness part that goes with it. I know yesterday I sat down and I had myself a good cry because I needed to get those emotions up and out. And that acceptance piece of, knowing that you're doing what you can, knowing that this will pass, as all not great things do. They end. I remind myself that everything is a moment, whether it's a big moment, a little moment, and all moments have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so this moment, this will end. I know that it will, because time is on our side. This moment will end. If I'm struggling with something in particular, if I'm struggling with a crappy thought, I know that that moment will end. If I bring all my tools and stuff to bear, rely on my support team, that moment will end. So we talk about, like this. So there's the stages of grief. So denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, acceptance. There's, a couple different models out there, but that's like the main one. And while, they're kind of presented in like an order, grief, much like a whole lot of other emotions, don't follow a line. Oh, I did it again. I touched my face. Grief is not like, oh, well, I had the denial part, so check. Feeling pretty sad about that, check. Doesn't work like that. Just like recovery is a process, and it's not a linear, like, I start here and everything gets better like magic. Not so much. It can look upside and downsides and sideways and loop-de-loos and all kinds of stuff. And grief is much the same way. All of your emotions are not much the same way, because we as human beings are just incredibly dynamic, and we change and we fluctuate in response to other people and our environments and all of that. So, when you're thinking about maybe the ways that grief might be affecting you in your life, don't assign it into a box. Don't put yourself in a box. Give yourself the grace and the space to kind of breathe, let those things develop, let them come, experience them, and then let them go. The parts of acceptance. I'll take a sip here. That was nice. So one of the parts of acceptance is hope. That we all should be stocking up on and spreading like crazy. Hope is kind of like two parts. I always think of it as two parts. So first and foremost, like, hope is a belief. It is a belief in two things. One, that things can and will get better. Two, it is also the belief that you have the capacity to make it so. And within that capacity, there's some acceptance pieces. It's funny how, like, all this recovery stuff that revolves around acceptance and like, it just all comes to bear in life. On a little sidetrack choo-choo, recovery is life. Don't forget about that. Don't forget about all those recovery tools. They are life tools. They apply to the depth and the breadth of life. So bring those to bear for your benefit right now. So within that hope, again, belief that things can and will get better, and belief in your capacity to make it happen. And some of that capacity to make it happen may be accepting that things are outside of your control. And it sounds counterintuitive, but that can give you hope. accepting what is in your control and what is not in your control. Things within your control, your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, your reactions, your actions towards other people. Not in your control. Mother Nature. Said virus situation. The rain. Oh, that's Mother Nature. Other people. Emotions. Not within your control. Um, so accepting what is and is not, because once you can accept that, that can kind of start to form as like your foundation upon which you can build your little pyramid of hope. And hope can also involve, looking and finding that meaning in the darkness. Um, every single loss that I have been through in my life, and there's probably been a lot. I know there's been a lot. Every single loss that I've been through, something good has come out of that. I have either learned something, I've grown somewhat, some way, I've watched other people grow. It forced me to reprioritize what was important to me and what was not. Maybe it helped me, set me on a better lifestyle, kind of on a better trajectory. So looking for that meaning, and we can look for that meaning right now, even in these uncertain times. We can find that meaning. We can find that good. It is there. And then also hope, so that capacity, to be a part of making that better, is knowing like what you can do. So right now, there's five big things that you can do, whether or not you're at home or not at home. Okay, so just depending on like kind of your work situation, by the day, by the hour, by the whatever. So 5 things. Your hands, wash them often. That's something that you can do. You can time yourself. You can take that 20 seconds and follow those guidelines. Your elbow, should you need to cough into your elbow. Also a thing that you can do, also within your control. Your face, don't touch it. Hard to do for many of us. But again, something that you can work on. Again, whether or not you're at home or out in public. Wash your hands, cough into your elbow, don't touch your face. Space. Keep adequate. Home. Stay home. If you're able to stay home, stay home. Okay? Those are all of us can do. That's all within our control that we can use as part of our foundation of building hope. Because we're accepting what's within our control, we're accepting what we can do, and we are taking concrete steps against something that we can't see. But we know that these steps work. When you get your information from a reputable source, from the World Health Organization, the CDC, which is the Centers for Disease and Control, the Health Department. It's legit shit there, okay? So having that hope is doing what you can do to shape that future to be better. Because again, we know that this is going to pass. It does, or how slowly it does kind of depend on us. And there are going to be people out there who are maybe going to put other people at risk unnecessarily, who maybe don't follow good hand washing precautions and that kind of thing. However, that doesn't have to be, just like in recovery, there are people out there who are going to still do crappy things, and who maybe try to attend a meeting to sell drugs. Like, there are people who do crappy things like that. And so what do we do as people in recovery? We say, hey, that's really not appropriate here. Please leave. That's what you can do. You set that model. It is a lot easier to encourage someone to be better by modeling what the heck better looks like. By spreading that hope, by spreading that kindness, that joy, that compassion. Being that model is hopeful. And so, as hard as it might be for some of us right now, to follow those guidelines that have been put in place, by our governor and whatnot, we really need to whenever we can. help things get better. So, on a broader sense as well, that hope piece when it comes to, maybe if you're having some anxiety or some depression, can be finding that meaning. What meaning is this going to have for you in your life? Whether that is for today, that that for that joy, and instead of thinking of all the things you have to do, you're going to think of the things you get to do. Oh, snap. I forgot our gratitude moment. We're going to have to circle around to that at the end. Oh, boy. But anyways, thinking about those things that you get to do, that can give you hope. The littlest things give you hope. And I would encourage you, if you're struggling right now, think back on some of the about when you felt sunshine or felt like sunshine and felt those good things. Like, what gave you hope then? Because oftentimes what worked for us before will work for us now. We just need to take out the time and pause to go back and remember, whatever that might be. So I would encourage y'all, stock up on kindness, compassion, and hope. And if you've got extra, spread it like wildfire. We need more of that in our community than ever before, because things are tense. I'm not going to lie. Things are probably going to be tense or so for the next couple weeks perhaps. And I want you to know that no matter what, someone's here for you. If you're struggling, like, please reach out. Like, I get being at that point where you are so down that phone feels like a 1-ton brick, and you just don't feel like you can reach out. And it's the strangest, most paradoxical kind of thing that you can perhaps go through. But if you can find that one moment of energy to reach out, to send that text, to make that phone call, to send us a Facebook message, please do so. You're welcome to call the crisis line here in town. You can text the crisis line 741-741. Use those resources. Your mental health providers, they are there to help you get connected. And if while you're waiting for that, again, reach out for help. There's no shame in doing that. There's nothing bad about reaching out for help, to have someone kind of maybe light that beacon of hope for you until you can carry it yourself. No shame in that whatsoever. Okay, so if you need someone to be that hope, or to give you that little hope message, reach out. Okay, somebody's got your back, always. I was remiss in not starting this recovery check-in with my gratitude moment. So I'm happy that it kind of came around in talking about it. So I want to make sure that we get that in. And home this morning, and my daughter is pretty goofy. A conference call, and I was feeling a little bit stressed, and then all of a sudden she comes walking up behind me, and she's got this goofy little hat on, and she can't see anything, and she runs like right into the face. And then she goes, "Oh," and then just toddles off. So it was hilarious. It was some much needed laughter into my morning. And so I am grateful that I can open myself up to experiencing those little moments of joy and embracing that laughter, and that I have lovely little messages from the universe every day, multiple times a day, that really help me important and help give me some really good perspective on what matters in that moment. Because that really helped me kind of shift gears and shift my mindset. So it was adorable. So that's my gratitude moment for today. I want y'all to, again, stay up to date on Hancock Helps. There's always information up there. Reach out to us. There's an open recovery meeting today at 4. Definitely would encourage you to join. It is Friday. Woo! So I want you to do something good, like do something real good for yourself, something that's good for your soul, something that you've maybe been lacking, doing. I know me. I think I'm gonna go for a walk this afternoon outside. I know it's a little bit gloomy and whatnot, but I don't matter. I need some nature in my life. Helps me feel balanced. So I'd love to hear from you guys about what you're gonna do to take good care of yourself. And if you don't have any ideas or need some ideas, holla. We can definitely connect you. So in the meantime, though, please stay home if you can. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. I did it twice, but I'm working on it. It's a recovery process, okay? And then I will see all of you guys tomorrow, which will be Saturday. I'll see all y'all at noon for our recovery check-in. And in the meantime, keep your hearts and minds resilient. And I'll see you tomorrow.